All right, I saw the Marvels. I know, one of the few. um, Jeez, what do you do? Of course, once again, and this is increasingly true of Marvel movies, is how bad was it originally? Because and the reshoots are obvious. Some, and I'm always forgiving of CGI, and some of the scenes of the CGI is fine. Others, wow, man, they really slapped that in there, and stuff like that. The main problem with it, in and of itself, is the plot is just really stupid on what the villain is doing. Where and people I've seen mention that it's the Spaceballs plot, where she's stealing the air from the Skrull refugee colony planet. And oh boy, a revenge plot against Captain Marvel from this villain would have been fine. And I think they should have just stopped there, and that she's threatening the Earth because she realizes that's Captain Marvel's home planet, and she wants revenge. And there you go, you know. And plus, in order to exact this, she needs the bangles, you know, the nega bands, I believe, supposed to be, or what have you. And Kamala Khan has one of them, and she has the other. She finds it buried on a moon at the opening of the film and all that. Which there was stuff to explore there. They don't. It's just there. It was a Kree artifact. In the Ms. Marvel show, which, yes, I'm one of the few who watched it, and I liked it. It was much better than this. And it's probably the best show they've done for the D plus Marvel shows, you know. And so the bangle, they show the scene where it's first discovered by Kamala Khan's grandmother, and you see it's being worn by a blue hand, and that's a reference to the Kree. I don't know that the viewing audience overall knew that, and I assume that that's what that nod was. They don't really spell it out. They end up talking about all, you know, Kamala Khan's family and the relationship to grandmother. It wasn't exactly human. She comes from another dimension and stuff like that. Okay, fine, but you needed to go, and this was the opportunity to flesh all that out. They really don't. They just show it there, and it's a Kree, something of the Kree, and all of that, but they don't. It's just okay. Danbar or whatever. I think she's a gender swap character. I'm not really up on everything about the Kree from the comics. A lot more than this movie was, though. But and so she gets, but that's it. She just finds it, and she knows there's another one out there, and if she gets both of them, then she's really powerful, and all that. And so you think, she's gonna get it, and of course she does at the end. But you know, and then so now, and then at the end she loses, and Kamala Khan has both now, and all that stuff. But the plot, and that her taking air from the planet, it's just too stupid that it kicks you right out of it, you know. So if you just had this revenge plot, at least you would have that, and you get a brief scene of the Supreme Intelligence actually looking close to what the Supreme Intelligence is supposed to look like, and Captain Marvel kills the Supreme Intelligence, and then flies away, apparently, and this destroyed the Kree homeworld. So they're pretty upset about it. So they call her the Annihilator. And I know this is decades ago, and she's like, yeah, I don't like being called that. I mean, Captain Marvel is harmed even more in this. She has a little more personality than the last one, but that's understandable, as she's no longer had her memories wiped. But you could understand certain damage done to her overall, which would have been an interesting thing to explore, but they never did. Captain Marvel is a character that didn't get much of a story. We don't know her, and you still don't, not really, because she doesn't get anything. She's about as bad as Rey from Star Wars. She never got a story really. And it's like you needed another film entirely to flesh out the character by the time you get to this team-up special, which is what it is, more than being a sequel to Captain Marvel. Kamala Khan in her own series got way more. And of course, it's a series. There are several episodes and everything, but there's more. You know who she is. She's completely defined in that series, her whole family and everything, and all that stuff. And yeah, that's a complete character there. Monica Rambeau gets a little more than Carol does, albeit briefly in the WandaVision series, only to get ruined at the end. But there's a little bit more there. But then, of course, the problem overall is, people didn't see these shows. I mean, I'm sure the WandaVision got way more viewers than Ms. Marvel did, but still, the show fizzled, and so that's that. And then, of course, you come back to Carol Danvers, who was a shoehorned character that they did in between their biggest movies. And that is the quintessential argument on it of how it hit $1 billion. People thought they had to see it to understand Endgame in total, because you got a cliffhanger stinger with Captain Marvel's symbol at the end of Infinity War. So, this is going to feed into it. No, it did not. You were perfectly fine to have skipped that movie and to watch Endgame. It's just, there's this other character shows up. That's about it. So what? And more to the point is there's a ginormous plot hole here that they don't lay the groundwork for with Kamala Khan. Kamala Khan is all goo goo gaga about Captain Marvel. She, that's her hero. She's a fangirl of Captain Marvel, and she bases her own name on her and all this sort of stuff. And then, but what did Captain Marvel do? How does anybody on Earth even know her? She shows up in the battle with Thanos, and the other Avengers would know of her, and that sort of thing. But that's it. There was no effort to even do a little bit of footage like in other movies where she's saving people from a hurricane or something. It's kind of like in The Flash where, which oddly enough beat this movie apparently. But in The Flash, you had the news footage of Superman dealing with a volcano, that kind of thing, that's saying she was active and people knew about her. But there's nothing. The other parts of it, and apparently it was much longer in its original form, and they cut that down a lot. And I kind of, there is this musical number in it where she goes to this planet where people communicate through song. And it's almost like a Star Trek concept. You could imagine they would have done something like that. It's kind of like that story where Picard had to communicate with this alien, but they only spoke in stories and that sort of thing. But I mean, as soon as I heard about it in the room, I was like, oh God. Oh, so I imagine they cut that down severely because it's not that long. So it doesn't bother me that much. The marriage to the prince, that they just threw it in. It's kind of like it's an embarrassing joke and then nothing more. I imagine there was probably something else there, but who knows. Tessa Thompson shows up, and I guess I kind of wonder if they put it in there that she and Captain Marvel were a couple. But it's all very brief, and then she's gone. Thank God. But the other thing is that this follows Secret Invasion, which was this terribly depressing, slow-moving nothing of a show, and just Nick Fury just moping around, and all that. He's a completely different character here. He's back to being more or less Nick Fury, but, silly Nick Fury. But the problem is the whole plot of that was like the sect of the Skrulls turned on the humans because they had nowhere to go and they were upset and they felt betrayed and all this sort of thing. Well, his There's a massive colony of them living on this other planet. They did find a planet for them. Their emperor was there. And but no defenses apparently to defend themselves against a Kree onslaught by this deranged woman. And so there's that. So okay, but still, the whole secret invasion was just a lie. It says, yeah, if you didn't like the situation, you could move to this planet where there's nothing but Skrulls. And they had a nice city and everything. I mean, yeah, stupid. It's another movie where there's sort of missed opportunities about of course, again, they failed to do the necessary groundwork for why Kamala Khan even knows about. She knew who Nick Fury was. He's supposed to be a secret agent, and all that. But her hero worship of Carol Danvers, and that, the old saying, never meet your heroes. And there's an opportunity here where they're trying to save and evacuate the Skrulls, and Kamala wants to save all of them, and Carol says, we can only save so many, and then, snaps at her, and then they leave. And you would have thought she's like, that's really cruel. And that, and how cold Carol Danvers could be a thing about that, and to where she's like, you're not nice at all. And then at the ending is kind of sad. Monica Rambeau gets trapped in another universe and all this sort of thing, which turns out to be the X-Men universe. But that they come together and sharing that they're sorry she's gone, and they don't know if she's alive or not or what have you, and whether they'll see her again. They will see her again. She'll probably pop up because of Secret Wars and stuff like that. But anyway, that would have been an interesting character journey for Kamala Khan, in that, your hero is not all that and that sort of thing. But again, would it have come together when you didn't do the necessary work? And that's the thing about Captain Marvel. Forget about the Brie problems, which I know a lot of people can't. But they just didn't weave the character in the way they did others. Black Panther was weaved in a good way. Spider-Man is weaved in the same movie, and they did that masterfully. Here, didn't. I thought that how they had wanted it, where her memories are wiped or whatnot, I would have thought she could have been a character that popped up in the Guardians movies, out in space and everything, and then slowly you get to it that way. But it just, all this hype about it, and that's all it was. They were lazy about their own character, and so why should anyone else care about it when they obviously don't? They don't care about the source material. They don't care about the canon. They don't care about the canon of their own narratives. They don't care about their, super duper pooper scooper female roles and all that. And so, yeah, Nick Fury's the only man here, the prince, that shows up briefly, but that doesn't mean anything. And then the villain's male flunky, but that's about it. So it's all girl power and everything. But at least they all have superpowers, so that they could be forgiven for how many men they take on. Although more times than not, Kamala Khan is seeing doing all these moves. She didn't get any real training for it beyond that. I mean, she did meet this sect in Pakistan. I guess they taught her a few things. I don't know, but anyway, she didn't get to use her powers that much. Not really. Maybe they had to save on that. I don't know. They still dumped a bunch of money on this thing that they're not going to get back. But then other things are stupid about, like Carol's coldness. And this has to have been an accident. They just didn't see it or think of it. But I mean, they begin to realize they swap places, and this causes all the shenanigans and whatnot. And Carol is, I got to get back to where I was. So she deliberately uses her power, but which when they activate their powers, it causes the swap between them. This isn't consistent throughout, but nevertheless. And so what does she do? Well, she decides to fly up into damn near orbit and switches places with Kamala Khan. So now poor Kamala, who cannot fly, is falling down, and then Monica, who's only just now learning to fly, has to fly up to rescue her, and then just barely they're able to save each other because combining the powers and stuff, which they don't swap when they do. So, but anyway, it's just like, damn, Captain Marvel is a bitch. But it's just like, you didn't see that? You didn't, think of some other way for that scene to have happened? It's about as bad as Wonder Woman 84 with the quantum leap rape scenario. I'm, stupid, but what did you expect? Well, about that. So in some ways, was it as bad as I thought it would be? No, it wasn't. I can see some people saying, well, it wasn't as bad as the first one, because there's not just this overwhelming misandry in it. There really isn't. So they probably cut a bunch of that out. So, but it just couldn't be saved. And of course, the health of Marvel is so bad. You've had just 2 years of crap. And so by the time had that not happened, had those been fairly adequate Marvel films, Captain Marvel would probably do a lot better. The Marvels would do a lot better. But beyond that, they kept plunging money into it to save it when they probably should have just scrapped it. Well, when they knew the characters were not that popular, and to invest that much into it without any of the necessary weaving or setup that the others had. Of course, you had the shows on D+, but you knew those didn't get the views. So, somebody needs to get fired, but I'll have to see, but don't know. So, ultimately, the positives was basically I liked the Miss Marvel show, so there was elements of that in here, that gave me a chuckle here and there, and it was nice and all that. It was obviously I would think cut the misandry out because there was very little of that in here. But ultimately the problem, and it's not even Brie Larson, the problem is they didn't write her character well at all, and they didn't they do stupid things like that swap thing in Flight, and then later on, after she had destroyed the Kree world and feels bad about it, and then it takes Monica to tell, well, with your powers, you could reignite their sun. At the end. And it's like, well, you could have made that offer sooner. Now, granted, Captain Marvel's too stupid to know that she probably could do it, so Monica had to explain it to her. But it's like, why did Monica wait? They didn't know it at first, and she tells them. But it's like, well, hell, they don't have to take our sun. That was the plot. She was going to steal the sun, or the sun's power, from Earth. And to reignite her own, but it's like Miss Marvel could just, flip a switch. Captain Marvel could flip a switch and reignite. So, it's just like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that. And so, yeah, just too much of the stupid in a lot of ways. I've seen worse, but that's not really much of a defense. And one wonders just how bad the original was. And I suspect it was probably a lot of the snottiness and misandry had been in it. Similar to like Doctor Strange, the rumor was they had, that thing got massively reshot. And the idea was America Chavez was, a snotty, insulting character. And they changed all that where she was likable, and sympathetic, which she needed to be for that story, but it wasn't enough to save the film. But nevertheless, that's probably more of what happened there. Plus the running time and stuff like that. Probably suspect the musical thing went longer and that kind of stuff. But it just wasn't worth the trouble of making it at all. So at the end, you get Monica's in the other universe. Oh, the Young Avengers. People were saying that was an end credit. It's not an end credit scene. It's within the film itself. It's at the end where she does the dialogue of Nick Fury from Iron Man talking to the new Hawkeye, the girl Hawkeye from the Hawkeye show. and we're going to be the Young Avengers, and that would be at best a D plus series. I don't think that would happen, as they're canceling a lot of stuff and having to shore up things. So I don't know if this goes anywhere. The Young Avengers originally was fine and had some interesting plot details to it. It was a pretty woke title, despite having a gay couple in it and all that. Plus, it ties into Kang. One of their members was Kang. Can you guess which one? But anyway, in this era where it seems to be all girls. Well, I mean, I guess they'll have to reintroduce Wanda's kids, because they're supposed to be members of it, and they'll just have to suddenly prematurely age them, I guess, and that sort of thing. But anyway, and then they still haven't introduced, with all the Skrulls, they haven't introduced the character that becomes Hulkling, who would be the original Mar-Vell's son. So, but well, I guess they'll have to gender swap or something. Anyway, what have you? Don't know that goes anywhere. The X-Men stuff, provided they can get the Secret Wars, definitely will. The Beast shows up, a CGI Beast, and she's in some X-Men facility. You see the logo on the wall, and a alternate universe version of her mother, who is in the binary outfit, which is a second name that Carol Danvers used when her powers changed. And there is a connection with the X-Men and her, but now it's going to be Monica's mommy instead of Carol Danvers and all that. But the costume looks pretty much like it. She didn't have all the fire and stuff around her, but I guess her powers just wasn't ignited at the moment. But anyway, that's their setup for that. So, oh boy, you had to go through all that just to see that little scene, and there's the Beast and all that. Some suggested that was put in later and that it might have been something else. It's just that, but I don't know. Binary's connection to the X-Men and all that, I think it was probably always meant to be an X-Men scene. And so, I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. It just... yeah, it is what it is. And of course the joke of, oh, they needed to change her name to non-binary, but yeah, I guess so. Anyway, there you go. Oh, the long-awaited The Marvels. Did it save the MCU? Nope. Couldn't even save itself. Couldn't even outpace The Flash, apparently.